being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
I don't think there has ever been a first episode that makes you fall in love with the show faster than the inaugural episode of Gakuen Utopia Manabi Straight. Within the first few minutes, we're given a taste of something torturously familiar with the sight of little gremlin girls in school uniforms, but are swiftly dealt a surprising twist in the form of one small revelation. This is the future of schoolgirl anime. In the now near year of 2035, Abe's successors have utterly failed to curb the declining birth rates, and high school itself no longer has much of a place in Japanese society as more and more students choose to enter the workforce or turn their backs on continuing education entirely. It's a premise almost unheard of in a genre that's done more to romanticize secondary schooling than any other artistic medium in history, and it's usually the first thing to catch the attention of unsuspecting viewers that tuned in expecting another clubroom snack time simulator. But then the gears start moving with the introduction of our main protagonist, Manabi, the encapsulation of all things Genki, whose solution to all of life's misfortunes is a rigorous, in-your-face fisting. Manabi immediately establishes herself as the standout weirdo at her new school, Seiyo High, where the unprecedented drop in morale has caused the dwindling student body to become even more lifeless than it is in the present. One day, for no particular reason, Manabi nominates herself to fill the vacant position of Student Council President, which serves as a shock to the only remaining member of the shrinking council, Mikan. Without any major credentials to impress or sway the minds of the students, Manabi does the only thing she can do to profess her love for the school by singing the Seiyo anthem. In one brief song, Manabi captures the hearts of the audience both inside and outside the show by demonstrating how much love she's able to harbor for a place and people she's barely known for a single day. Naturally, her bid for the presidency succeeds, and the adventure to save the dying Japanese education system begins. In one episode, we've dived into a concept yet to be explored by a rather confined genre of anime, met with several equally familiar but freshly fully realized cast members, and from the looks of timelessly crafted animation and sounds of ear-teasingly upbeat music, we know right away that this is going to be something special. Something that this scrappy, upstart studio is placing their full faith in. Even the ending sequence, with its unique stop-motion animation and delightful stylization, further cements the show's distinct identity among its vast sea of slice-of-life companions. Perfection. The strongest start possible. Added to watch list. 2007 is already shaping up to be a pretty good year, I have to say. But hold on, one is never enough. 12 episodes later, does Manabi Straight manage to maintain that caliber of quality and go down as one of the most solid slice-of-life titles in history? Well, yeah, I wouldn't be making a fucking video about it if it didn't. What, you want me to actually explain why? Well, alright then. Let's roll back the clock first.
We live in the year 2007, and they can't figure out that shit like that takes up too much room?
You know, it really is kinda disappointing how hard we peaked in 2007. It's almost unreal to think about how good it was for that brief 12-month time frame. You have the culmination of entire genres. Some of the most beloved studios and visionaries of our time were just getting their footing. Even the culture surrounding the medium itself was at an all-time high. Unfortunately, because there was just so much good happening at once, a lot of shows were unceremoniously swept under the rug of relevancy when they hit the scene, and Manabi Straight could not escape the dreaded broom of time. This aired in the same season as one of the greatest shows to ever broadcast directly from God's TV station, And if that couldn't become the genre-crossing smash hit it should have been, then you can imagine how little fanfare Manabi Straight achieved. And aside from the aforementioned monsoon of amazing shows coming out in its debut year, I can't pinpoint why exactly it never caught on the way other giants of slice of life did. There were a lot of hopes being placed on this show. Manabi Straight was conceived as this expansive multimedia franchise with not one but 2 manga adaptations, a visual novel for PS2, probably a pachinko machine at some point, and with all those aspirations, it was clear that the plucky young studio that had been given the script of this project had their work cut out for them. Long before UFO Table sold their souls to fate and then proceeded to have their asshole rearranged by Demon Slayer, they were the studio to take risks on projects with seemingly no financial prospects. Didn't always churn out a great product, but it was obvious when they were putting their heart and soul into making something with an actual artistic vision. This is why Manabi Straight has managed to age so gracefully, with animation putting similar shows from today to shame, while never shying away from taking the tone and visuals into unexpected directions for the sake of narrative complexity. It's a show whose appeal can extend from the easily impressed moe-guzzling morons to the pseudo-intellectual dipshits that want to see depressed schoolgirls cry a lot. The 2 main components of the anime fan spectrum, as we all know. But sadly, some of the greats just won't ever be recognized as much as they should be. That's a fact of life. I'm sure dozens of people watched that brilliant first episode and merely dismissed it as just another nondescript rendition of schoolgirls with happy days come up smiling in everyday life. That's a loss for them then, because after episode 1 comes one of the most inspirational tales of perseverance and triumph over adversity ever told. This is not a show about cute girls in high school. This is a show about 5 girls fucking the system.
Impossible, see invisible. Row, row, fight the power. Crush the untouchable, break the unbreakable. Row, row, fight the power. What you won't do is what you want to do. Just break the rule, then you see the truth. You see the view, cheat, baby. Row, row, fight the power.
Manabi Straight is divided into 2 sections. The first half that establishes the relationships between the 5 main girls and how they're all gradually recruited into the student council, and the second half, which is all about one thing, the school festival. We've already seen how Manabi is responsible for being the lone beacon of never-ending morale in this school full of hopeless alphabites born into a world with nothing to offer them. But what about all the rest of these munchkins? Mikan is a helpless introvert whose struggle to serve as her own source of inspiration throughout the show often makes her resemble the real protagonist at times. Muchi is the sporty tomboy who faces constant harassment from the legion of lesbians that mistake her short haircut as an invitation for daiquiri. Mei is the girl whose name rhymes with her archetype. And Momo is the resident cockroach, responsible for making weird noises. Individually, none of these girls are exceptionally interesting, but that's what makes the development of the student council such a beautiful sight to behold. Ordinarily, we'd simply be forced to suspend our disbelief that these completely different personalities would form an unbreakable bond of friendship that allows them to make their dreams come true. But Manabi Straight provides one of the most believably candid and touching depictions of how a group's identity forms that I've ever seen. Entire episodes are dedicated to just one pair of the girls and how they manage to overcome their differences, which is a feature that should be required from every show of this type. We already understand that Manabi is the glue keeping the group united, so it's refreshing to see how the rest of them get along when she's not around. It's a lot of setup to make the viewer wholeheartedly believe in the unshakable unity of this group, but it all pays off during that second half where the true conflict takes place.
させない。学園祭は絶対中止になんかさせない。まるで子供ね。
Manabi and her gang are dead set on one goal: host the greatest school festival in Seiyo history. They spend months doing nothing but brainstorming ideas for the festival, trying every possible way to validate the existence of the student council to a school full of non-believers that don't see any reason to hold something so trivial. The stability of these girls' lives rests on the shoulders of this festival succeeding. And what else could the universe do but completely fuck them over at every turn? The superintendent of the rival school comes in preparing to shut down the festival. A few days later, that bitch starts dating Manabi's older brother just to taunt her even more. None of the students at Seiyo are willing to sign the girl's petition to reinstate the festival. Those disloyal traitors, Muchi and Mei, eventually start slipping away from the council in their hour of need. Things get really bad in episode 10 when Al-Qaeda shows up. It becomes a heart-wrenching experience the longer it goes on. Watching the spirits of each girl, including someone as endlessly optimistic as Manabi, drop as low as they can go. Even as they act with the purest of intentions, trying to put on something special for hundreds of girls with so little to look forward to in the future, nobody is willing to aid them in this uphill battle against the oppressive force that is that brother-fucking whore that loves crushing little girls' dreams. Yet with each new hardship, our love for Manabi and the group grows stronger, as does their devotion to each other as they continue fighting independently. Characters you never expected to care about become legendary heroes by using their powers to support the cause, transforming this simple story about cute girls putting on a festival into something magnificent. A slice of life with stakes. Holy shit. You want just as much as Manabi to see this damn festival happen and for all these cynical naysayers to get blown the fuck out. For investment alone, Manabi Straight goes far beyond the standards of what a show like this needs to do. But along the way, you might stop and ponder why you feel so invested. Why should we or anyone else in the show give a damn about something as insignificant as a school festival? I mean, it's not like we haven't seen one of those in a million other anime. They're all the same thing, aren't they? What makes this one so special? Since the dawn of time, every anime fan eventually asks the same innocent question. Why the fuck are there so many shows set in high school?
We're all in this together. Once we know that we're all stars, and we see that.
It's a reasonable observation, and by now there's a variety of answers ranging from appealing to major demographics to the fact that all Japanese people naturally peak during their adolescence and spend a lifetime pining to relive that period through escapist media like anime. Both are probably correct, but I've got my own theory as to why this mundane setting keeps cropping up so frequently. School represents order, rigidity, the absolute. People that went to school 100 years ago can probably attest to experiences similar to someone attending school today. It's an unchanging element of society whose traditions run deeper than blood. And because nearly every single person has spent a sizable chunk of their lives taking part in those traditions, it is one of the few settings we intrinsically connect to the most. However, what happens when that symbol of eternal order is disrupted in the world of fiction? What if there's a school all about superheroes, or wizards, or monster girls? What if we isolated the narrative on the lives of a small handful of characters similar to you and I whose problems and interests evoke emotional affinity? What if we just did nothing but observe the lives of some girls doing nothing particularly interesting because, hey, why not? You can't do that in real life, you'll get arrested. Theoretically, there's an infinite number of ways to twist the concept of school for the sake of telling an engaging story. Yet, it feels like we've pretty much exhausted most of the ideas because we keep seeing them over and over again. However, Manabi Straight functions as a conclusion to the entire concept of a school setting as a whole by realizing the fantasy of every kid in the civilized world. What if school as we know it ceased to exist forever?
30年前はここも賑やかだったのですよ。
まるで想像できませんね。
できないでしょ。
While the future of 2035 in the show may resemble anything but a dystopia, there's a penetrating sense of despair lingering in the background. This is a future where even a nation as staunchly protective of tradition as Japan has given up on keeping age-old institutions intact, and now we're witnessing the slow, pitiful demise of one of humanity's most universal experiences. The experience of growing up alongside a group of people, forming unconventional friendships, and naively looking forward to the fabled transition into adulthood. I've got as many gripes with school as anyone else, but I do believe that as a system, it has some merits often taken for granted. It marks the one point in your life where you're truly forced to step out of your comfort zone by forming relationships with the most unlikely of people, which ultimately changes the person you grow up to be. Manabi straight takes that idea of unlikely friendships changing people and offers an entire case in support of the continued existence of school. You might not take much stock in it, and that's okay because most of the other in-universe characters don't seem to either. But how can they when they've grown accustomed to a world where a defeatist mentality is the norm? Despite how enthusiastic the main girls are about continuing the festival, the rest of the school has already accepted the loss of it as a fact of life and sees no point in fighting for its resurgence. They've chosen to openly embrace the death of tradition, because why bother prolonging the inevitable decay of everything you've ever known? Only Manabi and the girls seem to understand that what they're doing isn't a stubborn refusal to discontinue a trend of the past, but rather a goodbye. A funeral for a beloved piece of their school's history, and a farewell to a world that every fan of the slice of life genre has grown attached to. And, against every conceivable odd, their determination holds out. The festival is finally restored by a majority vote from the student body. But, after all that's transpired, it can only be described as bittersweet. This will still be the last festival for Seiyo, and eventually Seiyo itself and all the shared experiences it's provided to its students will cease to exist as well, as will most, if not all, high schools across the globe. The naysayers had a point. Everything will come to an end no matter how hard you fight for it. But that doesn't mean you should let it die without a kick-ass concert first. Despite the series' worth of hype surrounding it, the school festival turns out to be just a regular festival. It's not grand or extraordinary. In fact, the girls who broke their backs to ensure it happened in the first place barely get to participate anyway. But that isn't what matters. What matters is that it's something they fought for, sacrificed months of their lives, and risked their reputations for. This is an earned victory for both the girls and the viewer that followed them on the same journey and understands how much work went into it. But every great success story still needs an ending. Just as soon as we receive that gratifying resolution, we flash forward a year to see the girls graduating from Seiyo, leaving behind a new generation to take charge of the student council. Again, it's an extremely bittersweet feeling as we're once more reminded that even in the best of times, everything inevitably comes to an end sooner than we can emotionally prepare for it. However, in a breach of typical graduation episode tradition, we have an aftermath. Flash forward another year and a half after the girls have separated and gone on to live out different futures. They reunite for one evening as adults and spray paint graffiti on their old stomping grounds. The spray paint is specially designed to disappear after a few hours though, implying that nobody but the girls themselves will ever be able to properly appreciate this special occasion they've gotten to experience. But that's how it's been for them since the day they met, making memories and doing the work that no one else could ever value the same way. It's a brief but unbelievably impactful way to close out an equally brief but impactful series, giving the audience a satisfying bit of much-needed closure after a dozen episodes that hammer in the harsh but necessary lesson that all things must come to a demise. Although the five of them have grown apart and lack an excuse to remain united the way they once did, nothing can ever erase the memory of what they managed to achieve together. Manabi straight reminds us of everything there is to love about the tried and true cute girls in high school formula, but also prompts us to consider a future in which there are no more shows about cute girls in high school left to make. After unforeseeable changes in the industry or sweeping societal changes that make the future within the show a reality bring about an age where an anime like Manabi Straight no longer has a reason to exist, will we grow fonder of all these damn shows centered around something as stupid as high school? Or will we forget what relevance they ever had to begin with? No matter which timeline we find ourselves in, the last thing we should do is allow the traditions important to us die a pathetic death. If this show taught us anything, it's that accepting changes and so-called progress is no excuse for standing by and allowing our culture to be eroded by decades of indifference. Even if no one else but you gives a milligram of a shit, nothing is ever dead as long as someone continues to cherish it. That's the reason I've devoted so much of my time to lavishing this relatively unknown show from 2007 with more praise than you'd probably think it's worth. And I encourage you to do the same. Don't let Manabi Straight or any other show you hold dear collect dust and wither away in the back pages of my anime list, waiting for some douchebag to hand it the label of underrated gem, as if that even begins to describe its true worth. Experience it for yourself, share it with others, and hope to God that more slice of life in the future are willing to explore as many possibilities as this one little title that lived up to more than it ever needed to did. Do that, and maybe we can believe that things don't always have to come to an inevitable demise. Even if it's just in the form of a YouTube video, an image macro, or a little blurb of text on a message board, the greatness of Manabi Straight will never be forgotten or forsaken today, in 2035, or beyond.
Those were